The listing celebration banquet for Gilded Years was held at Cloud Spire Hotel, the most prestigious hotel in the city. A massive crystal chandelier hung from a 30-meter-high dome, its light glittering like a river of stars and turning the entire ballroom bright as day. Well-dressed guests moved through the room, champagne glasses in their hands, polite smiles on their faces. The air was thick with the scent of money and success. I stood at the entrance of the ballroom, holding an unsigned gold-embossed invitation. In that moment, I felt as if I did not belong to any of this. My name was Adrian Cole. I was the husband of Serena Shaw, CEO of Gilded Years. More accurately, I was her largest angel investor. For this day, for her company to go public successfully, I had invested a total of $120 million. That was almost all the liquid cash I had. I looked around, trying to find Serena in the crowd. Tonight, she was undoubtedly the focus of the entire room. She wore a custom silver evening gown that highlighted her slender figure and icy elegance. She was holding a glass of wine, chatting happily with a man who clearly had status. The smile on her face was bright, dazzling, and something I had not seen in a long time. I stepped forward, wanting to walk toward her. But a figure blocked my path at exactly the right moment. "Mr. Cole, you're here." The person who stopped me was Lena Moore, Serena's chief secretary. She wore a professional black skirt suit. Her smile was formal, but deep in her eyes hid a trace of barely noticeable contempt. I nodded in response. "Ms. Shaw is currently receiving important guests. Your seat is over there. I'll take you there." Lena's tone carried the kind of command that allowed no refusal. I followed the direction of her finger. It was the most remote corner of the ballroom, right beside the kitchen entrance. A lonely small round table sat there. The table did not even have the same velvet cloth used by the other tables. Its bare wooden surface was exposed. A few young people already sat there. They looked like interns or low-level staff, speaking quietly and stiffly, completely out of place compared with the main banquet area full of toasts and laughter. My heart sank in that instant. The last table? I looked at Lena. My voice carried no emotion. "Mr. Cole, I'm very sorry." The smile on Lena's face remained perfect, but there was not the slightest apology in her words. "There are simply too many distinguished guests tonight. The main tables and front row seats were arranged long ago. We really couldn't adjust anything at the last minute. You know how important this banquet is to Ms. Shaw. There can't be any mistakes." I did not look at her again. My gaze passed over her shoulder and landed once more on Serena in the distance. She seemed to have finished her conversation with that man. Now she was surrounded by a group of people, like a proud queen. As if sensing my gaze, she glanced in my direction from the corner of her eye. Only one glance. Then she quickly looked away. As if I were an irrelevant stranger. That look was like an icy needle, piercing directly into my heart. I took a deep breath and suppressed the emotion surging in my chest. "Secretary Moore, I remember checking this banquet guest list with you." My voice was calm. The main table arrangement, aside from the regulatory leaders and brokerage representatives, should have been reserved for our families. Lena's expression shifted slightly, but she quickly regained composure. "Mr. Cole, you remembered incorrectly. Ms. Shaw made some minor adjustments later. She said you never liked lively occasions, so she arranged somewhere quieter for you." "Quieter?" I almost laughed. A seat beside the kitchen door, listening to dishes clatter and staff rush in and out. She called that quiet? I no longer bothered with Lena's excuses. I walked straight through the crowd toward Serena. Every step felt like stepping on a cold blade. The surrounding guests looked at me curiously. Perhaps they did not know me. But they knew Lena behind me. And they saw the anxious, embarrassed expression on her face. I walked to Serena. She was clinking glasses with that elegant man. Seeing me appear suddenly, her beautiful brows furrowed with displeasure. "Why are you here?" Her voice was not loud, but it was full of undisguised blame. As if my appearance had ruined her mood. "Was this your arrangement?" I ignored the man beside her and stared at her, asking word by word. Serena's eyes dodged slightly. She lifted her glass and took a sip before answering in an extremely cold tone. "Lena arranged it. Is there a problem? Important guests are seated in front. I am your husband." I reminded her. My voice was hoarse from suppressing myself. That sentence froze the air around us instantly. The elegant man beside her showed an amused smile, watching us with interest as if enjoying a wonderful drama. A trace of embarrassment flashed across Serena's face, then was replaced by deeper coldness. She looked at me like she was looking at an unreasonable stranger. Her red lips parted, and she spoke the sentence I would never forget. If you don't like the seat, then leave. Time seemed to stop. All the sounds around me disappeared. I could only hear my own heart shattering inch by inch. I looked at the woman before me. Familiar. Yet completely unfamiliar. Once, she would leave a light on when I came home late. Once, she clumsily learned to cook soup when I was sick. Once, during the hardest days of her startup, she held me and said, "Adrian, I'm so lucky to have you." When did all that warmth and dependence vanish? Was it when the company received its first round of financing? Or when the media began calling her the new goddess of business? I could not remember. I only remembered that our home grew bigger and bigger, while our hearts grew farther and farther apart. I looked at her one last time. That look contained too much disappointment and finality. Then I turned and walked out of the ballroom without hesitation. Behind me was a deathly silence and countless complicated gazes. I did not look back. Walking out of the golden, dazzling ballroom, I left the warm light behind me. The cold air in the hallway instantly cleared my mind. I walked to an empty corner, took out my phone, and dialed a number I knew by heart. The call was answered almost immediately. "Adrian." A steady male voice came from the other end. "Julian." I spoke, my voice so calm even I found it surprising. "Activate the Clear Spring Plan." Julian Hayes was silent for a full 5 seconds. He was my college classmate, and also my most trusted lawyer and partner. This so-called Clear Spring Plan was the backup plan I had privately asked him to prepare when we signed the $120 million investment agreement. Clear Spring. To restore the source. To pull out the firewood from under the pot. "Adrian, are you sure?" Julian's voice became serious. "Once this begins, there's no turning back. This isn't just about $120 million. It's also about all those years between you and her. If she doesn't recognize that affection, why should I keep it?" Serena's sentence echoed in my mind. "If you don't like the seat, then leave." The pain in my chest had turned numb. Only an icy clarity remained. "Are all the clauses in the agreement confirmed?" "Don't worry." Julian answered firmly. "The third paragraph of Article 7, the core partner respect clause, you asked me to add, I drafted it flawlessly. The clause clearly states that at any major public occasion, Party A, Gilded Years, must give Party B, the representative of Astor Capital, namely you, the same highest level treatment as a core founder of Party A. Otherwise, Party B has the right to unilaterally activate the valuation adjustment agreement, requiring Party A to return all investment principal within 24 hours and pay a 20% penalty. Did she read that agreement back then? She did. Julian's tone carried a hint of irony. But at the time, she was desperate to get the money to fill a financial hole. The agreement had more than 100 pages. She only looked at the financing amount and equity ratio. She signed the rest without reading. She said she trusted you. She said she trusted me. How ironic. Good. Execute it. I hung up and looked toward the closed ballroom doors at the end of the corridor. It was as if I could see through those doors and see the radiant woman inside. I checked the time on my phone. 8:26 p.m. I silently began counting down. Inside the ballroom. After the brief awkwardness caused by my departure, the atmosphere quickly became lively again under the host's guidance. Serena wore the perfect smile again, moving gracefully between distinguished guests with a wine glass in her hand. As if the earlier episode had never happened. Only Lena, standing behind her, remained pale. "Ms. Shaw, Mr. Cole." Lena leaned close to Serena and whispered. "Shut up." Serena interrupted coldly. "He's insignificant. Don't let his mood affect me. Tonight's most important guest is Mr. Holt. Take good care of him." The Mr. Holt she mentioned was the man she had been chatting with earlier. Graham Holt. He was the head of another investment firm and held considerable status in the industry. Serena had spent months trying to pull him in as a strategic partner after the company's listing. In her eyes, one Graham Holt was more important than 10 Adrian Coles. Soon, the banquet reached its climax. As the star of the evening, Serena was going on stage to give a speech. She casually handed her clutch and phone to Lena, lifted the hem of her gown, and walked elegantly onto the stage prepared for her. The spotlight fell on her. She was the only queen in the room. Distinguished guests, dear friends, good evening. Her voice was clear and confident, traveling through the microphone across the ballroom. Just then, the newest phone in Lena's hand suddenly began vibrating violently. 3 words flashed on the screen. Finance Director. Lena glanced at Serena on stage, who was delivering her speech with passion. After hesitating, she pressed mute. But the phone was silent for less than 10 seconds before it vibrated stubbornly again. Again and again. A vague sense of unease rose in Lena's heart. Finally, I want to thank all the friends who support Gilded Years. I want to thank my team. Because of your hard work, we have today's glory. Thank you all. Serena's speech ended in thunderous applause. She bowed to the audience, wearing a brilliant victor's smile. As she walked off stage, Lena immediately came forward and returned the phone to her. Ms. Shaw, your speech was wonderful. Lena's face was piled with flattery. Director Brooks from finance called several times. It seems urgent. Walter? Serena frowned with displeasure. Doesn't he know I have an important banquet tonight? No sense of rules at all. I'll handle it after the banquet. She was about to put the phone back into her clutch. But at that moment, the screen lit up again. Director Brooks. Serena's patience finally snapped. She swiped to answer, irritated. What is it? I'm busy. Even if the sky is falling, it can wait until I'm done. From the other end came Finance Director Walter Brooks's panicked voice. It sounded like he was about to cry. Ms. Shaw. Something terrible happened. Something huge. What could be huge? Serena remained dismissive. Is the sky collapsing? Or is the company going bankrupt? Ms. Shaw, it's worse than bankruptcy. Walter's voice was so sharp it nearly pierced her eardrum. Our largest angel investor, Astor Capital, just sent us a formal notice through legal channels. They activated the withdrawal clause in the valuation adjustment agreement. What? Serena's mind buzzed as if struck by a hammer. Withdrawal? Adrian wants to withdraw? Has he lost his mind? It's true, Ms. Shaw. Walter's voice trembled with despair. The lawyer's letter is extremely forceful. It demands that we return the full $120 million principal within 24 hours and pay an additional $24 million penalty. Their capital withdrawal process has already begun. 4 minutes ago. Our accounts are being force liquidated. The stock stabilization fund we prepared for the listing has been emptied instantly. Ms. Shaw, we just went public. The stock price foundation is still unstable. That $120 million was our anchor. Once it's pulled out, tomorrow at market open, no, even tonight in after-hours trading, the stock price will collapse. The company is finished. Crack. The expensive crystal champagne glass slipped from Serena's hand and shattered on the floor. Golden champagne mixed with glass fragments, soaking the hem of her expensive evening gown. The noise in the ballroom seemed to pause instantly. Every gaze focused on her face. A face that had lost all color and was filled with shock and disbelief. She was stunned on the spot. Impossible, absolutely impossible. Serena murmured, staring blankly at the broken glass on the floor. As if what had shattered was not a champagne glass, but her entire world. How dare he, how could he do this to me? In the next second, she snapped back to reality. She grabbed her phone and called me frantically. Sorry, the number you dialed is powered off. The cold system voice poured over her like ice water. Again. And again. Always the same response. Ah. Serena let out a sharp, collapsing scream. She suddenly turned and slapped Lena hard across the face. This is all your fault. All your fault. She screamed hysterically, completely ignoring the stunned gazes of the guests around her. I asked you to arrange seating. Who told you to put him there? Who gave you the courage? Lena covered her burning cheek, wronged and terrified. Ms. Shaw, wasn't it what you allowed? You said you didn't want to see him in front of Mr. Holt. I told you to shut up. Serena was like an enraged lioness, her face twisted. The banquet originally meant to celebrate her victory had turned into a complete farce. Those distinguished guests, who had been smiling and flattering her earlier, now stood far away, whispering among themselves. Their eyes no longer held envy or respect. Only the gloating curiosity of people watching a show, and the pity reserved for a loser. Especially Graham Holt. He stood with his arms crossed, a cold sneer on his lips. His eyes seemed to say, "Look. This is what happens when you abandon your true backer and try to cling to me." Serena's perfect night was shattered completely. At the same time, I was sitting in an elegant jazz bar. Soft music flowed through the air, forming a sharp contrast with the chaos at Cloudspire Hotel. Across from me sat Julian Hayes in a perfectly tailored suit. He had just finished handling all legal documents and rushed over. "It's done." He pushed a file toward me. "According to the Clear Spring Plan process, the first phase of capital withdrawal is complete. Next comes penalty recovery and equity liquidation. Tomorrow morning, Gilded Years' board will receive our formal lawyer's letter." I lifted the whiskey in front of me. Ice cubes clinked crisply inside the glass. My hand was steady. My heart was surprisingly calm. "She'll come to me," I said. "Definitely." Julian nodded. "A $120 million gap, plus a $24 million penalty, is enough to crush any newly listed company instantly. Her only way out now is to beg you to withdraw the order." He looked at me, his eyes complicated. "Adrian, I still want to ask. Do you truly not regret it at all?" I shook my head and drank all the liquor in my glass. The burning liquid scorched my throat, but it made me feel clear. Regret what? Regret giving her 8 years of youth? Regret selling the only old house my father left me so I could gather her first startup fund? Regret staying awake with her for 3 nights during the company's most dangerous moment, building the plan that turned everything around? Or regret giving up all shares and positions in the company to make her feel secure, keeping only the title of investor through Astor Capital, stepping behind the scenes, willingly becoming the invisible man under her success? My voice was light, but it carried 1,000 pounds. "Julian, I gave her countless chances. A heart does not turn cold in one day." Julian sighed and said no more. He knew I was telling the truth. The third paragraph of Article 7 in that investment agreement, that seemingly insignificant core partner respect clause, was the final line I left for myself. When she stepped over that line without hesitation, everything between us was already over. Sure enough, that night, my phone nearly exploded. After I turned it back on, Serena's calls, texts, and voice messages poured in like a flood. I did not answer. I did not read them. In the second half of the night, she went directly to the entrance of Julian's law firm but was stopped by security. Finally, she found our former home. It was a top-floor Riverview apartment in the city center. After Gilded Years received its Series B funding, Serena insisted on buying it, saying it matched her new status. Yet when she pushed open that familiar door, what greeted her was cold emptiness. All my belongings, clothes, books, personal items, had already been cleared out by movers I hired in advance. On the expensive Italian handmade coffee table in the center of the living room lay one document quietly. Julian drafted it for me. Divorce agreement. I would leave with nothing. I did not want the apartment. I did not want the cars. I did not want any original shares in her company. I only wanted back the $120 million I had invested. And my freedom. I could imagine what expression Serena had when she saw that agreement. Shock? Fury? Or finally a trace of regret? But none of that mattered to me anymore. Monday. Financial markets are the most realistic and cruel places in the world. The news that Gilded Years' largest angel investor withdrew capital overnight spread through the entire circle before the market opened. At 9:30 a.m., the market opened. Gilded Years' stock code turned from red to a blinding green in an instant. It hit the limit down at opening. A massive wave of sell orders locked the stock at the lower limit. No one took the other side. All retail investors were stunned. Just last Friday, the company had been glorious, praised by major financial media as the most anticipated tech fashion IPO of the year. How had it collapsed after one weekend? The company hotline was blown up. Board members, the partners who had once shared the glory, had now become judges demanding blood. "Serena Shaw, you must give us an explanation. What exactly happened? $120 million. Why did that money suddenly get pulled out? Why did your husband turn against you? What about the stock price? What about our investment? You must take full responsibility." Serena was overwhelmed. After a sleepless night, her face had none of its usual radiance. Only exhaustion and madness remained. She explained to the directors again and again. Promised. even begged. But no one listened. In the world of capital, results matter. Explanations do not. Soon, the fire spread to both families. My parents were the most simple and honest people. They had always been proud that I married such an outstanding and capable daughter-in-law. When they saw the news of Gilded Years' plunge and received calls from relatives asking what happened, they panicked completely. They called me, voices full of worry. "Adrian, what exactly happened? Did you and Serena fight?" I did not hide anything. I told them everything that had happened at the celebration banquet. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, my father sighed. "Son, your mother and I support you. Money can be earned again. But a man's dignity cannot be lost. A son of the Cole family cannot be trampled like that." My eyes burned. On the other side, after Serena's parents learned what had happened, they immediately called me. The moment the call connected, my mother-in-law's tearful accusations came. "Adrian, what are you trying to do? What couple doesn't fight?" Serena was only confused for a moment. Success went to her head. "How can you be this ruthless? Do you know how important that company is to her? It is her life. By doing this, are you trying to force her to die?" "Mom," I interrupted calmly. "You should ask her whether, before treating her company as more important than me, she ever remembered that I once treated her as my life. You should also ask her why, while enjoying the profit brought by my $120 million and standing at the peak of her life, she arranged for me to sit beside the kitchen door." My mother-in-law was speechless. "Adrian, listen to me. This was Serena's fault. She was blinded. Calm down first. Stop the withdrawal order. Let our family sit down and talk, all right? Whatever compensation you want, we'll agree." "No need." I spoke lightly. "A broken mirror cannot be made whole. Mom, from now on, please call me Adrian Cole. I can no longer accept being called family." Then I hung up. After everyone failed to contact me, Serena found me in a way I had not expected. She went to the hospital my father often visited. My father had a chronic condition and needed regular physical therapy. When I appeared at the therapy room entrance carrying fruit and health supplements, I saw the haggard figure waiting there. She wore an ordinary trench coat. No makeup. Her hair was simply tied behind her head. The dark circles under her eyes were so heavy they could not be hidden. For a moment, she reminded me of when we first met. "We need to talk." Seeing me, she immediately walked over, voice hoarse. I said nothing. I only walked past her into the therapy room, accompanied my father through the treatment, helped him into the car, and sent him home. During the entire process, Serena followed like a ghost, neither too close nor too far. Only after I settled my parents and came downstairs again did she block my path. "Adrian Cole, do you really have to be this heartless?" Her eyes were red, her voice trembling with accusation. "You were heartless first." I looked at her, my gaze calm. "When you treated me as an embarrassment because of Graham Holt. When you enjoyed all eyes on you but could not even spare me a respectful seat. When you coldly said, 'If you don't like the seat, then leave.' You personally cut off every thread between us." "I didn't." She argued emotionally. I cared too much about that cooperation. Graham Holt is crucial to the company's future. I thought you would understand me." "Understand?" I laughed. "I understand you. Who understands me? Serena, do you remember our wedding anniversary 3 years ago? I booked the restaurant. Bought the gift. Waited for you the entire night. In the end, you sent one message saying you were in an emergency meeting and couldn't leave. Later, I found out you weren't in a meeting at all. You were singing karaoke with so-called investors. Because Lena posted a group photo of all of you on her social media." Serena's face instantly turned pale. That past event, buried deep in my heart for years, was like a sharp blade I pulled out by hand. It cut me again. And stabbed her too. From that moment, I knew something between us had changed. "So now you're taking revenge on me, right?" She cried and smiled miserably. "You're using $120 million, using the destruction of everything I built, to punish me for one careless mistake?" "No." I shook my head. "I'm not punishing you. I'm taking back what should belong to me. My money. And my dignity. I hope you sign the divorce agreement as soon as possible." My confrontation with Serena ended badly. And on the other side, Lena, the person who had lit the fuse, also met her ending. After the company's stock hit limit down for 3 consecutive days and nearly half its market value evaporated, Serena, under enormous pressure from the board, had no choice but to find a scapegoat. Lena was the best choice. A dismissal notice swept her out of the company on the grounds of major work error causing irreversible loss to the company. Lena was unwilling to accept it. She felt wronged. It had clearly been Serena who allowed it. One could even say Serena had instructed it. Why should Lena bear all the blame in the end? After being fired, she lost her income. Because of her damaged reputation in the industry, she could not find work for a while. With nowhere to go, she thought of me. She believed that if I forgave her and helped calm Serena down, she might still have a chance to return. Through various means, she found out where I lived and waited downstairs with a basket of expensive fruit. When she saw me, she immediately put on a pitiful expression. "Mr. Cole, I'm sorry. What happened that night was all my fault. I was blind. I failed to recognize your importance. Please be generous and forgive me this once." She even tried to grab my arm. I stepped back and avoided her touch. "You should apologize to Ms. Shaw." I looked at her coldly. After all, the person you harmed the most was her, not me. But Ms. Shaw won't see me. "Mr. Cole, I know you are soft-hearted. Please help me plead with Ms. Shaw. I can't lose this job." Soft-hearted? I looked at her, my eyes without warmth. "Secretary Moore, when you arranged for me to sit beside the kitchen door, did you ever think my heart might be soft? When you looked at me with contempt, did you ever imagine this day would come? You chose your path. So naturally, you must bear the consequences." After saying that, I ignored her crying and walked into the apartment building. From that day on, I never saw Lena again. Later, Julian told me she returned to her hometown and disappeared from the city completely. The crisis at Gilded Years continued to ferment. The consecutive limit downs nearly broke the company's cash flow. Bank collection notices flew in like snowflakes. If things continued this way, the company would file for bankruptcy protection before my penalty recovery even came through. Just as Serena was overwhelmed, begging everyone for help and hitting walls everywhere, someone extended a helping hand. Graham Holt. He took the initiative to meet Serena. Elegant and composed, he said Horizon Capital, the firm under his name, was willing to make a strategic investment in Gilded Years to help the company survive. For Serena, trapped in despair, this news was like rain from heaven. As if grabbing her final lifeline, she immediately accepted Graham's invitation. They met at a high-end private club. Graham remained as charming and confident as ever. "Ms. Shaw, I understand your company's current difficulties." He swirled the red wine in his glass and spoke unhurriedly. "To be honest, I admire your talent and courage. Gilded Years is a good seedling. It would be a shame for it to collapse like this. Mr. Holt, thank you. If you are willing to help at this time, Serena Shaw and Gilded Years will never forget this kindness." Serena laid down all her pride and lowered her posture. "Easy enough." Graham smiled and pushed a document toward her. "This is the investment agreement we drafted. We can put in $150 million to fill the hole left by Adrian Cole and provide extra liquidity to stabilize the stock price. $150 million. The number instantly lit up Serena's eyes. It was even more than she had expected. Excited, she opened the agreement. But when she saw the later clauses, the blood slowly drained from her face. Graham's condition was that he would acquire 51% of the company at an extremely low price. That meant he would become the absolute controlling shareholder of Gilded Years. And Serena Shaw would fall from queen of the company to a senior manager working for him. This was not help. This was robbery in a snowstorm. A wolf in sheep's clothing trying to swallow her whole. "Mr. Holt, what do you mean by this?" Serena's voice trembled. "My meaning is written clearly in the agreement." The gentle elegance disappeared from Graham's face. In its place was the cold greed of a businessman. "Ms. Shaw, business is war. You either accept my terms and let me revive this company, while you keep a portion of equity and a respectable position. Or you wait for bankruptcy liquidation. Then you will have nothing and carry massive debt." He leaned back and looked at her leisurely. "Speaking of which, I should thank your ex-husband. If not for his dramatic rage for beauty move, would never have had the chance to take controlling interest in Gilded Years at such a low price." His words were like a poisoned dagger, stabbing hard into Serena's heart. Only then did she fully see Graham's true face. Admiration? Cooperation? From beginning to end, what he wanted was only her collapsing company. He was like a patient hunter, waiting for her weakest, most helpless moment before pouncing forward and delivering the fatal blow. And she had foolishly treated this ambitious predator as an ally she could rely on. She had even humiliated the man who truly supported her for him. Massive regret and irony drowned her like a tide. She thought of me. She thought of when I gave her $120 million and signed that so-called humiliating investment agreement. In that agreement, I asked only for the lowest interest return. I demanded no decision-making power. I took only a symbolic amount of equity. I told her, this company is your dream. I'm only responsible for helping you realize it. Fly forward with confidence. I will always be your support. How did she answer back then? Moved to tears, she hugged me and said I was the greatest luck of her life. Yet she had thrown away that luck with her own hands. After withdrawing the money, I did not merely vent my anger as Serena imagined. With the recovered funds, and with Julian's help, I quickly registered a new investment company. Its name was simple. Dawnstar Capital. Dawnstar meant a new beginning. I did not make a public spectacle. I quietly began my layout. I knew the tech fashion sector where Gilded Years operated like the back of my hand. These years, although I had stayed behind the scenes, I had precise judgment of industry trends, technological changes, and the strengths and weaknesses of each company. Serena only saw the money I provided. She never truly understood how many strategic decisions I made for her company. She always thought those were her own genius ideas. She never knew that many inspirations came from casual conversations with me. My first investment after withdrawing went to an unknown startup. That company held a core patent for smart fabric technology, but because it lacked funding and market channels, it had never turned the technology into a product. They had once sought cooperation with Gilded Years. But Serena, riding high at the time, dismissed them with contempt, saying the technology was immature and the market prospects unclear. I, however, saw the huge potential behind that technology. I not only provided funding. I also used my years of connections to match them with top production lines and designer resources. In less than a month, Dawnstar Capital and that company jointly released the world's first smart business shirt that could automatically adapt to temperature and humidity. The product caused a sensation the moment it launched. On the first day of pre-sale, orders exceeded 500,000 pieces. Dawnstar Capital and the name Adrian Cole became financial headlines overnight. Everyone marveled at my sharp eye and decisive methods. Only then did they realize that Serena Shaw's seemingly ordinary ex-husband was not some useless man living off his wife at all. He was a dragon hiding in the deep sea. It was not that he lacked ability. He had simply been willing, for one woman, to restrain all his light. And now, that woman did not want him anymore. So the dragon opened his eyes. My high-profile counterattack made Gilded Years' situation even worse. Its already shaky stock price fell again. The board could no longer sit still. They rejected Graham's predatory agreement and decided to hold an emergency board meeting instead. The meeting had only one topic: how to respond to Dawnstar Capital's rise, and how to calm Adrian Cole's anger. They sent me an invitation. In my name as Gilded Years' second-largest shareholder. Although my shares were being liquidated, the procedures were not yet complete. Julian asked me, "Are you going? This is obviously a trap. They want to roast you over the fire and use public pressure and old feelings to force you to comply. Go." Why wouldn't I? I smiled. Some accounts should be settled in front of everyone. On the day of the meeting, I arrived at the Gilded Years conference room on time. Around the huge table sat company directors and senior executives. Serena sat in the main seat. Her face was pale. Her eyes dull. Like a rose drained of all water. Beside her, surprisingly, sat Graham Holt. He had clearly been invited to observe as a potential investor, and his face still wore that irritating, self-satisfied smile. When I walked in, every gaze landed on me. Complicated. Probing. Even afraid. I sat in my seat, directly across from Serena. Silent smoke filled the room. From the beginning, the atmosphere was oppressive. An older director cleared his throat first and spoke in the tone of a peacemaker. "Adrian, you and Serena were husband and wife after all. What can't be discussed properly? Does it really have to come to this? This benefits no one. Yes, Mr. Cole, another director immediately echoed. Gilded Years also contains your hard work. Can you really bear to watch it collapse? We know the celebration banquet was Ms. Shaw's fault, and the company wronged you. We apologize to you on her behalf. As he spoke, he actually stood and bowed to me. For a while, the conference room was full of voices trying to make peace. Their central idea was simple. I should consider the bigger picture, cancel the withdrawal decision, and inject the funds back into the company. I said nothing. I simply listened quietly, the corner of my mouth carrying a faint, cold smile. Only after they spoke until their mouths were dry and the room became quiet again did I slowly lift my head. But my gaze went to Graham Holt, who had not spoken. Mr. Holt, as an observer, you seem to have something to say. Graham clearly had not expected me to call his name. He froze for a second, then pushed his gold-rimmed glasses and spoke arrogantly. Since Mr. Cole asked, I'll say a few words. He stood as if he were the owner of the room. Everyone, emotional decision-making is a taboo in business negotiations. What Gilded Years needs now is not apology. It needs real funding and a solution. He paused, his gaze sweeping over me with contempt. My Horizon Capital already has $150 million in cash ready. As long as Ms. Shaw and the board agree, the funds can arrive anytime. As for Mr. Cole. Forgive my honesty, Mr. Cole. This is a game of capital, not children playing house. Throwing a tantrum will solve nothing. That little Dawnstar capital of yours only succeeded by luck on one opportunistic project. In terms of strength, resources, and industry position, what do you have to compare with us? His words were full of condescension and disdain. The other directors looked ugly, but no one dared refute him. After all, Graham was their only hope now. Finished? Only after Graham finished did I speak slowly. I took a thick stack of documents from my briefcase and placed it lightly on the table. Since Mr. Holt put it that way, then today we discuss only business, not emotion. I stood and walked to the projector, displaying a file on the large screen. This is my analysis report on Gilded Years' financial condition and strategic development over the past 2 years. My voice was not loud, but it reached everyone clearly. On the surface, revenue has increased year by year. The company went public successfully. Everything looks glorious. But in reality, the foundation has long been rotten. I pointed to the data charts on the screen and analyzed item by item. First, blind expansion. To pursue pretty financial statements, Ms. Shaw opened 30 offline flagship stores in the past year. All these stores are in the most expensive commercial districts, with luxurious decoration, but extremely low sales per square meter. Every month, they generate enormous losses. Second, RD stagnation. After the listing, all funds and energy were poured into marketing and stock price maintenance. The core product RD department has not released a truly innovative product in 8 consecutive months. What you are selling now is still technology from 2 years ago. Third, talent loss. Because Ms. Shaw's management style became increasingly dictatorial, and she refused to listen to any opposing opinions, half of the original core technical team has already left. Those who remain are anxious and uncertain. With every point I stated, Serena's face grew paler. I had raised these issues privately more than once. Every time, she dismissed me with, "What do you know? Times have changed. Directors, do you truly think the company reached this point only because I withdrew $120 million? I looked around the room, my gaze sharp as a blade. That $120 million was only the final straw that broke the camel's back. The real illness is here." I pointed to my temple, then to Serena's ashen face. Strategic short-sightedness. And managerial arrogance. Then I changed direction and projected another file. Now, let's discuss Mr. Holt's Horizon Capital. On the screen appeared the names and logos of several companies. Blue Ocean Tech. 3 years ago, Horizon Capital took control under the name of Strategic Investment. Half a year later, its core technology was emptied, the founder was kicked out, and the company became a shell. Windline Media. Acquired by Horizon Capital 2 years ago. 1 year later, all high-quality IP under it was transferred at a low price to another company connected to Mr. Holt, and the original company declared bankruptcy. There are many more examples like this. I looked at Graham's iron-blue face and spoke word by word. "Mr. Holt, you truly are not playing house. You are playing a capital plunder game. Nurture. Trap. Kill. What you want has never been Gilded Years' future. You want its remaining valuable brand and channels, so you can tear off the flesh, break the bones, and eat it clean. The conference room was deathly silent. Every director looked at Graham with terror and anger. As for Graham, the arrogance and composure on his face finally vanished. Only the anger of someone exposed remained. You're slandering me. Whether I am slandering you, the directors can investigate themselves. I no longer looked at Graham. I turned back to the board members. Now, there are two roads in front of you. The first road: accept Mr. Holt's kindness, sell the company to him, and watch him completely destroy the Gilded Years brand. Of course, you may be able to recover a pitiful amount of your investment before he kicks you out. The second road. I paused, then revealed my real purpose. Dawnstar Capital reorganizes Gilded Years. Reorganizes? Everyone froze. Serena also lifted her head violently and looked at me in disbelief. Yes. I said, not investment. Not rescue. Reorganization. I walked to the conference table and distributed the final document to every director. My plan is simple. The most valuable thing Gilded Years currently owns is not its already damaged brand, nor those money-losing offline stores. It is the company's few core technical patents, and the product R&D team that, while marginalized, still has fighting power. I propose that Dawnstar Capital invests to establish a new company, then purchases these high-quality assets from Gilded Years at a valuation. That includes technology patents, the R&D team, and supply chain channels. As for the rest, that bloated brand, those heavy debts, and this mess can remain with Ms. Shaw and whoever wants to keep playing with her. My words exploded in the room like a heavy bomb. Everyone was stunned. They had thought I came to negotiate. They had not expected I came to dismember the company. I had never intended to save Gilded Years. What I wanted was to remove the foundation. Take the essence. Discard the rot. I would use Serena's proudest company to nourish my own business empire. That was much harsher than simply watching it go bankrupt. You can't do this. Serena finally broke down. She stood and screamed hysterically at me. Adrian Cole, that is my company. I built it step by step. What right do you have to take it away? Your company? I looked at her coldly. Serena Shaw, have you forgotten? The startup capital for this company came from me selling my father's house. The core technical framework of this company was built by me after staying up for 3 nights. The reason this company survived until today was my continuous $120 million blood transfusion. You treated it as your queen's scepter. I only ever treated it as an investment I could take back at any time. Now, as a whole, it no longer has value to me. So I choose to split and sell it to maximize returns. That is business. My words were cold and cruel, without a trace of emotion. Serena trembled violently. Tears poured down her face. She looked at me with despair and regret. She finally understood. What she had lost was not only a husband who loved her. It was a giant who could have held up her entire world. And she had pushed him away with her own hands. After a brief shock, the board members began intense discussion. My plan was cruel. But for investors, it was currently the only way to reduce losses and possibly even get returns. Separating high-quality assets and injecting them into a more energetic, more promising new company was much wiser than sinking with the mess that was Gilded Years. In the end, the board voted. With an overwhelming majority, they passed my reorganization plan. When the result came out, Graham left with a dark face. Serena sat slumped in her chair like a statue whose soul had been extracted. The life's work she was proud of. Her pride. Her empire. On this day, I personally dismembered it in the most commercial, legal, and cruel way possible. After the meeting, I was about to leave when Serena chased after me. In the empty hallway, she blocked my path. Her eyes were red and swollen. Her voice was hoarse beyond recognition. Why? She looked at me, tears silently sliding down. Adrian Cole, did you really have to go this far? We were husband and wife. Husband and wife? I looked at her, my heart utterly calm. When you tried to please another man and tossed me into a corner like trash, did you fulfill your duty as a wife? When you enjoyed the kingdom I built for you but refused to spare me even one equal look, did you remember we were husband and wife? Serena, I gave you chances. My voice was light, but it struck her heart like a hammer. At the celebration banquet, if you had walked over and said, "Honey, come sit with me at the main table," even if it were only for show, I would not have activated the Clearspring plan. During all those nights when you hung up my calls and forgot every anniversary, if even once you had remembered my kindness and said one soft word to me, I would not have gone this far. You closed every door yourself. It was your arrogance and coldness that drained the last of my affection bit by bit. She opened her mouth but could not speak. What else could she say? Everything was her own doing. Sign the divorce agreement soon. I left those final words and walked past her without looking back. Behind me came her suppressed, desperate sobs. But those sobs could no longer stir even a ripple in my heart. The reorganization proceeded smoothly. Dawnstar Capital purchased all core technology patents and the R&D team from Gilded Years at a fair price. Those core talents who had once been suppressed and pushed aside by Serena chose to join my new company almost without hesitation when they learned I was leading the acquisition. Many of them had been personally interviewed and hired by me years ago. What they trusted was not the Gilded Years brand. It was me, Adrian Cole. I gave them better pay, freer creative space, and most importantly, respect. At the first all-hands meeting of the new company, I said only one thing. Here, there are no untouchable bosses. Only partners fighting for the same goal. I don't care what your title is. I care only about your talent and contribution. Any valuable idea deserves to be taken seriously. Long applause rose from the room. I saw the light return to eyes that had once gone dim. I knew I had done the right thing. With a new team and sufficient capital support, the smart fabric technology from the startup we had acquired developed rapidly. We soon launched second-generation and third-generation products, expanding from men's business wear into outdoor sports, maternal and infant health, and multiple other fields. I named the new company Far Horizon Technologies. Far Horizon. A name meaning poetry, distance, and possibility. I hoped my career would no longer be bound by the vanity in front of me. I wanted it to bring real, beautiful change to people's lives. In less than half a year after its founding, Far Horizon Technologies became the fiercest dark horse in the industry. Its valuation soared. Where there is rising, there is falling. While my side flourished, those who had once hurt me met their endings one by one. Graham Holt, because I exposed his dirty capital game during the Gilded Years acquisition, became notorious. Several companies that had planned to cooperate with him urgently suspended projects. His Horizon Capital encountered its biggest trust crisis since founding, suffered a broken cash chain, and was eventually swallowed at a low price by a larger consortium. From a predator high above others, he became prey devoured by someone else. In a way, he got exactly what he deserved. As for Lena, I never heard from her again. I heard that after she returned to her hometown, her arrogance remained high, but she could not endure hardship. Her life became difficult. The former glamour she once enjoyed became gossip and mockery among relatives and neighbors. She paid the price for her short-sightedness and snobbery. Serena's ending was the most lamentable. After I stripped away all high-quality assets, Gilded Years was left only with an empty shell and massive debt. Soon, the company was forced to delist due to insolvency and entered bankruptcy liquidation. The properties and luxury cars under her name were all seized and auctioned by the court to repay debts. Overnight, she fell from a listed company female CEO worth hundreds of millions into someone with nothing, even carrying part of the personal joint guarantee liability. In the end, we still divorced. At the entrance of the Civil Affairs office, she handed me the signed divorce agreement. She had lost a lot of weight. Her eyes were hollow. "Adrian Cole, I wish you a bright future." I did not answer. I only nodded and turned away. 1 year later, by chance, I saw her again at a job fair. She wore an ordinary professional suit, moving through the crowded hall and handing her resume to recruitment booths one after another. There was no longer any queenly halo on her face. Only exhaustion and confusion worn down by life. Many young interviewers did not even know who she was. They did not know what glory she had once created. When I saw her nodding humbly to a young interviewer almost 10 years younger than her for an ordinary manager position, I did not feel pleasure. Only a dazed sadness. Life is a stage. The world changes without warning. She once had the best script, but ruined it with her own arrogance. Far Horizon Technologies grew better and better. We focused on technological innovation and product refinement. We did not play empty marketing games. The company culture was what I had always insisted on. Respect talent. Seek truth from facts. 2 years later, relying on its absolute leadership in global smartware technology, Far Horizon Technologies successfully listed on the Science and Technology Innovation Board. This time, there was no grand celebration banquet. No elegant guests in expensive clothes. I only invited the company's core team and their families to a scenic resort and held a simple, warm party. At the party, I distributed the first batch of newly issued shares after the listing to every employee present. Seeing the excitement and joy on their faces, I felt satisfaction I had never felt before. It was more real and warm than the false glamour of Gilded Years' listing celebration. Julian came too. He patted my shoulder with deep emotion. "Adrian, you finally became the person you wanted to be." I smiled and raised my glass. Yes. I had finally found myself again. I was no longer the shadow beneath someone else's halo. No longer the stepping stone on someone else's road to success. I was me. Adrian Cole. An ordinary man who had used his wisdom and principles to win back his dignity and career in this realistic world. Beside the bonfire at the party, the company's R&D director, a young man named Jason Hayes, introduced me to his sister. "Mr. Cole, this is my sister, Clara Hayes. She's an architectural designer and just returned from overseas." The woman before me wore a simple linen dress. Her temperament was gentle and clear. A light smile rested on her face. "Mr. Cole, I've heard a lot about you. My brother mentions you often. He says you are the most visionary and humane entrepreneur he has ever met." Her voice was like a mountain spring, comfortable to listen to. We talked a lot. From architectural aesthetics to the relationship between technology and humanity. I discovered that we shared many topics and similar values. She was not like Serena, full of aggressive ambition and desire. She carried a kind of calm transparency that came from years of experience. When the party ended, we exchanged contact information. I did not know how our future would develop. But that did not matter. What mattered was that I had completely walked out of the shadow of that failed marriage and begun a brand new life. I stood on the resort balcony, looking at the bright stars in the distant night sky. My heart was peaceful. Everything in the past, whether love or hatred, had become passing smoke. What truly belonged to me was this vast world before my eyes. And that far horizon, full of infinite possibility. That's all for today's story. Remember to subscribe and leave a comment.